I'm sitting in the front row at Harvard Law School graduation, and my son just went completely white. He's staring at me like I'm a ghost, like I shouldn't exist, like someone made a terrible mistake letting me through the gates. And he's right about one thing. I wasn't supposed to be here. Last night, Daniel called me. My son, the one I raised alone in a Dorchester walk-up after his father died. The son I worked 3 jobs for, 16 hours a day for 23 years. The son whose Harvard tuition I paid with my cleaning wages, selling my dead mother's jewelry, skipping meals so he could eat. That son called me at 9:47 p.m. and said, "Mom, you don't know how to behave at these fancy events. It's better if you stay home." He was ashamed of me, of my accent, of my hands that are cracked and scarred from scrubbing toilets in the law firms where his future colleagues work, of the fact that I look exactly like what I am, a 57-year-old housekeeper who looks 70. I said, okay. I hung up. I didn't cry. I just sat in my kitchen staring at the graduation program with his name printed in elegant letters, wondering how the boy I raised became a man who could erase me so easily. This morning I put on my best dress anyway, the one from Goodwill that I'd been saving. I was going to walk to Harvard Yard, stand in the back where he wouldn't see me, just watch him graduate from a distance. That's all I wanted, to see the moment I'd paid for with years of my life. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mrs. Elena Vasquez? This is Dean Catherine Morrison from Harvard Law School. Your presence is required at today's ceremony. A car is being sent to your location. This is not optional." I stood on the corner of Blue Hill Avenue, completely confused. Was Daniel in trouble? Had I done something wrong? 8 minutes later, a black town car pulled up. The driver opened the door and said, "It's an honor, ma'am. Your son is a fool, and he's about to learn that." Now I'm here, front row, next to faculty and distinguished guests in their expensive clothes, all of them staring at me in my Goodwill dress and Payless shoes. Dean Morrison herself escorted me here, her hand on my elbow like I'm someone important, like I belong in this space that my son explicitly told me I was too embarrassing to occupy. Daniel keeps looking at me. He's in the 3rd row of graduates, and I can see him shaking even from here. He's trying to figure out what's happening, how I got here, what this means. The blonde girl next to him, I think that's Sarah, his girlfriend, is asking him something, but he can't answer. He just keeps staring. The ceremony starts, speeches, awards. I'm not listening. I'm watching my son fall apart in real time, and part of me, God forgive me, is enjoying it. Let him be afraid. Let him feel a fraction of what I felt last night when he told me I wasn't good enough to witness his triumph. Then Dean Morrison approaches the podium. "Before we confer degrees," she says, "I want to announce a new initiative, the Elena Vasquez Endowment for First-Generation Students." My name. She just said my name, in front of 2,000 people. This scholarship fund, established by an anonymous donor, will provide full tuition for 12 students per year who are the first in their families to attend graduate school. People are clapping politely. They don't understand yet. Let me tell you about Elena Vasquez. Dean Morrison's eyes find mine. 23 years ago, she arrived in Boston from El Paso, Texas. 24 years old, newly widowed, with an infant son. She spoke limited English. She had 2 suitcases and $300. The applause stops. Everyone leans forward. Elena worked 3 jobs. Morning shift at the Fairmont Hotel. Afternoons cleaning apartments in Beacon Hill. Nights at law firms in the financial district. 16-hour days, 7 days a week. For 23 years, she paid every dollar of her son's education. When financial aid wasn't enough, she sold her mother's jewelry. She skipped meals. She wore the same 3 work uniforms for years because new ones cost money her son needed for books. I can't breathe. This isn't honor. This is exposure. Everyone is staring at me now, and I want to disappear, which is ironic because yesterday my son wanted the same thing. Last night, Dean Morrison continues, and her voice gets harder. At 9:47 p.m., Elena's son called her. He told her not to come to today's ceremony. He said, and I quote from a conversation overheard by an attorney who employs Elena, "You don't know how to behave around these people. It's better if you stay home." Gasps. Actual gasps from 2,000 people. I see mothers in the audience start crying. I see Daniel's face completely crumble. He was ashamed of his mother's accent, her clothes, her hands. Dean Morrison pauses. The hands that paid for every single moment of his education. She gestures toward me. "Mrs. Vasquez, would you please stand?" My legs won't work. The woman next to me, wearing Chanel, dripping in diamonds, nudges me gently. I stand on shaking legs. 2,000 people stand with me. The applause crashes over me like a wave. I see Daniel in the middle of it all, sitting frozen while everyone around him stands and claps for the mother he tried to hide. His classmates are looking at him, some with pity, most with disgust. Dean Morrison waits for silence. Elena Vasquez has been invisible her entire life in this city. Women like her clean our buildings, raise our children, and we walk past them without seeing their faces. Today, we see her. Today, we honor her. She turns to Daniel. "Mr. Vasquez, would you like to say anything to your mother?" He can't speak. He's crying so hard his whole body is shaking. The blonde girl, Sarah, is staring at him like she's seeing him for the first time and doesn't like what she sees. I'm still standing. Everyone is still looking, and I realize this moment, this public reckoning, is both the best and worst thing that could have happened, because my son needed to be broken. But now I have to watch him shatter in front of everyone, and despite everything, he's still my son, still the baby I carried across state lines, still the boy who used to fall asleep in my arms. The ceremony continues, but I don't remember any of it. Just the weight of those eyes, the sound of that applause, and the look on Daniel's face. Pure shame, horror, the realization that he destroyed something he can never get back. When it ends, he finds me in the crowd. He pushes through people and falls into my arms, sobbing. "Mama, perdóname. Por favor, perdóname." I hold him because what else can I do? But I don't say I forgive him. I don't say it's okay, because it's not okay, and I don't know if it ever will be. People keep stopping us, shaking my hand, thanking me, taking pictures. The anonymous donor reveals himself, Robert Morrison, senior partner at one of the firms where I clean. He'd heard Daniel's phone call, worked late Wednesday night, heard every word. "You deserve to be seen," he tells me. But here's what nobody knows yet. Here's what I'm about to discover that will make this whole nightmare so much worse. Sarah, Daniel's girlfriend, will text me in 3 days. She'll ask to meet. She'll show me messages on Daniel's phone. Messages I was never supposed to see. Group chats with his law school friends. Text exchanges that prove this wasn't a moment of panic or shame. It was calculated, planned, for weeks. "My mother's situation is handled," he wrote 2 weeks ago. Told her the ceremony is family only, limited tickets. She bought it. Crisis averted. His friends congratulated him, said he was smart, said their own parents were embarrassing too, but insisted on coming. And Daniel responded, "Yeah, I learned early. Control the narrative or it controls you." I don't know this yet. Right now, I'm just holding my sobbing son, letting him apologize, trying to figure out if this public humiliation broke something in him that needed breaking, or just taught him to be better at hiding his shame. Right now, I'm Elena Vasquez, 57 years old, housekeeper, widow, mother, standing in Harvard Yard being honored for sacrifices I never thought anyone noticed, being applauded for work I thought was invisible, being seen for the first time in 23 years. And my son, the one I gave everything for, is on his knees, begging for forgiveness. I don't know if I can give it to him. I don't know if love is enough when trust is shattered. I don't know if you can rebuild a relationship after one person deliberately tried to erase the other. But I'm about to find out, because this story isn't about a graduation ceremony or a scholarship fund or a public moment of justice. This story is about what happens after, when the cameras stop, when the applause fades, when a mother and son have to figure out if there's anything left between them worth saving. And I'm terrified the answer might be no. I still remember the exact temperature of that Boston morning. 42 degrees, the kind of cold that seeps through your coat and settles in your bones. May in New England is unpredictable, stubborn winter refusing to release its grip. I stood at the window of my third-floor walk-up in Dorchester, watching the sun struggle through gray clouds, my reflection staring back at me like a ghost. 57 years old, and I looked 70. My hands, wrapped around a chipped mug of Café Bustelo, were maps of my life. Cracked knuckles, calluses thick as leather, veins rising like mountain ranges beneath paper-thin skin. 23 years. That's how long I'd been in Boston. 23 years since I left El Paso with Daniel in my arms, a widow at 24. My husband's funeral still fresh in my memory. Felipe died installing air conditioning units in the desert heat. Heat exhaustion, the doctors said. But I knew it was more than that. It was poverty. It was a system that worked men to death and called it bad luck. I packed our lives into 2 suitcases, kissed my mother's grave, and boarded a Greyhound north with $300 and a cousin's address in Dorchester. The apartment hadn't changed much since then. Same water-stained ceiling, same radiator that clanged like church bells at 3 a.m., same narrow kitchen where I'd raised my son on rice and beans and prayers. But Daniel had changed. My God, how he'd changed. I looked at the graduation program on my kitchen table, the one he'd brought over last weekend with his laundry. Harvard Law School, class of 2024. His name in elegant serif font, Daniel Felipe Vasquez, Juris Doctor. My finger traced the letters. I'd paid for every single one of them. Every letter, every class, every moment of his transformation from a Dorchester kid to whatever he'd become. The call had come last night, Thursday, May 23rd, 9:47 p.m. I remember because I was watching the clock, waiting to finish folding his laundry so I could finally sleep. My shift at the Fairmont Hotel had run long. A wedding reception, champagne spilled on marble floors, guests who looked through me like I was furniture. I'd clocked out at 8 p.m., taken the Orange Line to Ruggles, walked the 15 minutes home because the bus costs money. Mom. His voice on the phone was tight, controlled. The voice he used with his law school friends, not the voice that used to call me Mama and ask for one more bedtime story. Mijo, I was just finishing your shirts. You want me to drop them off tomorrow morning before the ceremony? Silence. Long enough that I checked if the call had dropped. Mom, about tomorrow. I've been thinking. My heart lifted. Maybe he wanted to have breakfast together, just the 2 of us before the ceremony. Maybe he wanted to take pictures at the apartment, show his friends where he came from. Foolish hope. These events are. They're complicated. There are protocols. Important people will be there. Senators, judges, partners from major firms. I waited. The radiator clanged. You don't know how to behave around these people, Mom. It's not your fault, but these are formal situations. The way you talk, your English. And these people, they notice everything. It's better if you stay home. The words hit me like a fist. I sat down at my kitchen table. The phone pressed so hard against my ear it hurt. Outside, a police siren wailed down Blue Hill Avenue. Somewhere in the building, the Johnsons were arguing again, their voices bleeding through thin walls. You're ashamed of me. I said it quietly, in English. making sure every word landed clearly. "Mom, it's not like that." "Your accent?" "My accent." "That's what you mean." "It's not just that. It's the way you dress. The way you—" He stopped, but I heard what he didn't say. "The way I look. The way I am. Working class, brown-skinned, immigrant. The woman who cleans toilets so he can wear a suit." I looked at the Virgin Mary statue on my shelf, the one my mother gave me before I left El Paso. "Virgencita, give me strength." "What do you want me to say, Daniel?" "I want you to understand. This is important for my career. First impressions matter. I've worked so hard." "You've worked hard." I repeated it slowly. "You." "Mom, please don't make this difficult." I thought about telling him. About the double shift I worked last Tuesday when Maria called in sick, cleaning 17 hotel rooms in 6 hours until my back screamed. About selling my mother's opal ring last year to cover his spring semester housing. About the crackers and coffee I'd had for dinner 4 nights this week because his textbook expenses ran over budget. Instead, I said, "Okay, mijo." "Really? You understand?" "I understand." I understood perfectly. I understood that my son had learned to be ashamed of the hands that fed him. "I'll take lots of pictures. We can celebrate Sunday. Just us. I'll take you to that Brazilian place you like in Cambridge." "Sure. Congratulations, Daniel. I'm very proud of you." I hung up before he could hear my voice break. I didn't cry right away. I finished folding his laundry, Oxford shirts pressed with care, underwear matched and stacked, socks paired perfectly. I packed everything in the canvas bag he'd left. Then I sat at my table and stared at the wall until 2 a.m., watching shadows shift as cars passed below. At some point, I made more coffee. The building settled around me, pipes groaning, floorboards creaking with the weight of other people's lives. Mrs. Chen upstairs, whose husband had Alzheimer's. The Johnsons, holding their marriage together with duct tape and shouting. Young Marcus in 2B, studying nursing at Bunker Hill Community College, working overnight at CVS. All of us, invisible people in an invisible building, holding up the world while the world looked away. I thought about not going to graduation, about honoring Daniel's wish, staying in my apartment like he wanted, like I was something to be hidden. But something in me, stubborn and small and furious, refused. I'd earned the right to see my son graduate. I'd paid for it in years of my life, in the permanent curve of my spine, in the arthritis that made my fingers scream when it rained. So Friday morning I woke at 5 a.m. like always. I showered in the rust-stained tub, washed my hair with the good shampoo I saved for special occasions. I put on my navy dress, the one I'd found at Goodwill 3 months ago, dry cleaned at the place on Dudley Street that gave me a discount because I'd cleaned the owner's mother's apartment for years. I ironed it carefully, steam rising in my tiny kitchen. I polished my black shoes, the ones I'd bought at Payless in 2019, and resoled twice. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, light makeup. I'd learned from YouTube tutorials, practiced until my hands stopped shaking. Small gold earrings, the ones Felipe gave me on our wedding day. I looked respectable, clean, presentable. But I also looked exactly like what I was, a housekeeper pretending to belong somewhere she didn't. The ceremony started at 10 a.m. I left my apartment at 8:30, giving myself time to walk to the Red Line, ride to Harvard Square, find my way to the law school. I'd only been to Cambridge a few times, once to help Daniel move into his dorm his first year, once to bring him groceries when he had the flu. Harvard Yard felt like another country, all brick and privilege and history that had nothing to do with people like me. I made it 3 blocks before my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Spam calls, usually. Someone trying to sell me insurance I couldn't afford, or warn me about problems with the Social Security number I'd worked so hard to earn. "Hello? Mrs. Elena Vasquez?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional, the kind of voice that came from generations of good schools and family money. Yes, this is Dean Catherine Morrison from Harvard Law School. Your presence is required at today's commencement ceremony. A car is being sent to your current location. Please wait outside your building. I stopped walking. A man in a tracksuit jogged past, his breath forming clouds. I don't understand. My son, he said. Mrs. Vasquez. Her voice was firm but not unkind. I'm aware of what your son said. The car will arrive in approximately 8 minutes. Please wait outside. This is not a request. The line went dead. I stood on the corner of Blue Hill Avenue and Stratton Street, completely lost. Was Daniel in trouble? Had something happened? Had I done something wrong? My mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. Maybe he'd failed a class. Maybe there was a problem with tuition payment. Maybe they'd found out I'd stretched the truth on financial aid forms. Claimed income I didn't have to make him eligible. A black town car pulled up exactly 8 minutes later, sleek and expensive, completely out of place on my street. The driver got out, an older black man in a dark suit, his gray hair cropped close, his face kind. Mrs. Vasquez? I nodded, unable to speak. He opened the rear door. It's an honor, ma'am. Please. I don't understand what's happening. Dean Morrison will explain everything. But if I may say so, he smiled and it reached his eyes. Your son is a fool, and he's about to learn that. The drive to Cambridge was surreal. Leather seats, climate control, the smooth ride of a car that cost more than I'd earned in 5 years. The driver, his name was William, he told me, made gentle conversation. He'd been driving for the law school for 20 years, he said. He'd seen a lot of students. He'd seen a lot of parents. You're not the first mother to sacrifice everything, he said quietly. But you might be the first to get the recognition you deserve. I didn't know what he meant. We arrived at Harvard Law School just before 10 a.m. The ceremony was being held outside, rows of chairs arranged on the pristine lawn, a stage decorated with crimson banners, hundreds of people milled around, graduates in black robes, parents in designer clothes, professors in academic regalia. I felt every eye on me as William escorted me from the car. Dean Morrison was waiting. She was tall, maybe 65, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that missed nothing. She wore a crimson robe over a black dress, elegant and imposing. Mrs. Vasquez. She extended her hand. Her grip was firm, businesslike. Thank you for coming. Dean Morrison, I'm very confused. Is Daniel in some kind of trouble? Her expression softened slightly. Your son is not in trouble. But he did make a significant error in judgment, one that needs to be corrected publicly. She gestured toward the rows of seats. You'll be seated in the front row, with faculty and distinguished guests. Your son doesn't know you're here. Let's keep it that way for now. She guided me through the crowd, her hand on my elbow, protective and proprietary. People stared. I saw their eyes catalog everything. My Goodwill dress, my Payless shoes, my hands that no amount of lotion could soften. I walked with my head up anyway. Felipe used to say I had the posture of a queen. Dignity, he'd say, costs nothing, mi amor. The front row was intimidating. I sat between a woman in Chanel and a man in a suit that probably cost more than my rent. They nodded politely, then ignored me. I searched the crowd of graduates for Daniel. There, third row, talking to a blonde girl, laughing. He looked so handsome in his robe, so confident, so completely removed from the boy who used to fall asleep on my lap watching novellas. Then he saw me. His face went white. I watched the color drain, watched his smile freeze, watched his eyes dart from me to Dean Morrison, to the front row seating arrangement. He said something to the blonde girl who looked confused. He started to stand, then sat back down. His hands gripped his knees. Even from 50 feet away, I could see him shaking. Good, I thought. Be afraid. The ceremony began with the usual pomp. Processional music, faculty filing in, welcoming remarks. I barely heard any of it. I kept my eyes on Daniel, watching him squirm, watching him realize that his carefully constructed world was about to shatter. Part of me felt guilty for enjoying his discomfort. Most of me didn't. Then Dean Morrison approached the podium. "Before we confer degrees," she began, her voice carrying across the lawn, "I want to take a moment to announce a new initiative, one that speaks to the very heart of what legal education should represent." The crowd quieted. Daniel sat rigid, his face unreadable. "The Elena Vasquez Endowment for First-Generation Students." She paused, let the name sink in. "This scholarship fund, established by an anonymous donor, will provide full tuition and living expenses for 12 students per year who are the first in their families to attend graduate school." Polite applause. People still didn't understand. "Let me tell you about Elena Vasquez." Dean Morrison's eyes found mine. 23 years ago, she arrived in Boston from El Paso, Texas. She was 24 years old, newly widowed, with an infant son. She spoke limited English. She had 2 suitcases and $300. She found work as a housekeeper. The applause faded. People leaned forward. Elena worked 3 jobs. Morning shift at the Fairmont Hotel in Back Bay. Afternoons cleaning apartments in Beacon Hill. Nights at various law firms in the financial district. 16-hour days, 7 days a week, for 23 years. I felt my face burning. This wasn't honor. This was exposure. She paid every dollar of her son's education. Every single dollar. When financial aid wasn't enough, she sold her mother's jewelry. She skipped meals. She wore the same 3 work uniforms for years, stitching them when they tore, because new ones cost money her son needed for books. She never complained. She never asked for help. She simply worked and prayed and sacrificed. The crowd was silent now. I could hear birds, distant traffic, nothing else. Last night at 9:47 p.m., Elena's son called her. He told her not to come to today's ceremony. He said, and I quote from a conversation overheard by an attorney at Morrison & Associates, where Elena has cleaned offices for 15 years. "You don't know how to behave around these people. It's better if you stay home." Gasps. Actual gasps. Daniel's face crumbled. He was ashamed of his mother's accent, her clothes, her hands. Dean Morrison's voice was steel. The hands that paid for every moment of his education. The hands that scrubbed toilets so he could stand here today wearing that robe. She gestured toward me. "Mrs. Vasquez, would you please stand?" I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The woman in Chanel nudged me gently. I stood on shaking legs. 2,000 people rose with me. The applause started slow, then built, crashing over me in waves. I saw mothers crying. I saw fathers wiping their eyes. I saw students, Daniel's classmates, standing and clapping, some looking at him with something like disgust. Dean Morrison waited for silence. "Elena Vasquez has been invisible her entire life in this city. Women like her clean our buildings, raise our children, cook our food, and we walk past them without seeing their faces. Today we see her. Today we honor her. And today we commit to ensuring that her sacrifices help others who come after." She turned to Daniel. "Mr. Vasquez, would you like to say anything to your mother?" He couldn't. He just sat there, tears streaming down his face, unable to speak. The ceremony continued, but I remember none of it. Just the weight of all those eyes, the sound of that applause, the feeling of being seen for the first time in 23 years, and the look on my son's face, shame and horror, and something that might have been the first crack in the person he'd become. When it ended, when the graduates threw their caps and families swarmed the lawn, Daniel found me. He pushed through the crowd, his face destroyed, and fell into my arms. "Mama," he sobbed, reverting to Spanish, to the language of his childhood. "Mama." Perdóname. Por favor. Perdóname. I held him. What else could I do? He was still my son. Still the baby I'd carried across state lines. Still the boy who used to trace my face with tiny fingers and say, "Te quiero, mami." But something had broken. Something that apologies couldn't immediately fix. People stopped to shake my hand, to thank me, to take pictures. The anonymous donor revealed himself, Robert Morrison, senior partner at Morrison & Associates, Dean Morrison's brother. He'd worked late Wednesday night, heard Daniel's phone call from the conference room, made a decision. "I've watched you work for 15 years, Mrs. Vasquez," he said. "You deserve to be seen." The blonde girl Daniel had been talking to approached carefully. "Mrs. Vasquez? I'm Sarah. I just wanted to say..." She looked at Daniel, who wouldn't meet her eyes. "I think what you did is incredible. I'm from Ohio, small town. First in my family, too. My mom cleaned houses. She's not here today because we couldn't afford the plane ticket." Her voice broke. "Thank you for coming anyway. We left eventually, Daniel and I. He'd driven his used Honda Civic, bought with money I'd saved, though he'd never acknowledged that. We sat in the car for 10 minutes before he could start the engine, both of us silent, the weight of what had happened settling between us like a living thing. "I don't know how to fix this," he finally said. I looked at him, this stranger in expensive clothes, this man I didn't recognize. "You can't fix it, mijo. Not today. Maybe not ever completely. But you can choose who you become from here. I'm so sorry, Mama. I don't know what happened to me. Law school, those people trying to fit in." He gripped the steering wheel. "I forgot. God help me. I forgot everything. You didn't forget. You chose. You chose their approval over my dignity. You chose their comfort over my presence. Those are choices, Daniel. Own them." He drove me home through Friday afternoon traffic, neither of us speaking. When we pulled up to my building, he turned off the engine. "Can I come up?" "Not today." "When?" "When you figure out who you want to be. The man who's ashamed of where he came from, or the man who remembers that someone loved him enough to sacrifice everything." I got out of the car, climbed 3 flights of stairs, unlocked my door, stood in my kitchen, still in my Goodwill dress, and finally let myself cry. Not from sadness, from exhaustion, from the weight of being seen, from the terror of wondering if my son was lost forever, and if somehow, through love or neglect or desperation, I'd been the one to lose him. Outside, Boston continued its indifferent rhythm. Sirens, traffic, the voices of people living their invisible lives. And somewhere in that noise, a mother's prayer rose like smoke, asking for forgiveness, for wisdom, for the faith to believe that even broken things could heal. The first week after graduation, Daniel called 17 times. I counted. Each call went to voicemail, his voice progressively more desperate. "Mama, please. I need to talk to you. I need to explain." By Wednesday, he was crying on my answering machine. By Friday, he stopped calling altogether. I went back to work Monday like nothing had happened. Same 5 a.m. alarm. Same Orange Line train filled with other early morning workers, nurses ending night shifts, janitors, security guards, all of us carrying the city on our backs while it slept. The Fairmont knew about graduation. Maria had seen it on the news. Yes, it made the local news. Housekeeper honored at Harvard ceremony, with a photo of me standing while everyone applauded. She hugged me in the break room, tears in her eyes. "Tú eres una reina, Helena," a queen. But I didn't feel like a queen. I felt exhausted, hollow, like someone had reached inside me and scooped out everything vital, leaving only the shell that knew how to fold hospital corners and remove coffee stains from marble. The law firm was worse. Morrison & Associates, where I'd cleaned for 15 years, where Robert Morrison had overheard Daniel's phone call and decided to fund a scholarship in my name. The attorneys knew. Of course they knew. Monday night, when I arrived at 10 p.m. to clean the offices, The receptionist, Claire, young and kind, who always asked about Daniel, stopped me. "Mrs. Vasquez, Mr. Morrison wants to see you. Conference room C." My stomach dropped. I was going to be fired. The attention, the publicity, it was too much. They'd replace me with someone quieter, someone who didn't make them feel guilty every time they threw away their catered lunch. Robert Morrison stood when I entered. Late 50s, silver hair, the kind of handsome that comes from good genetics and better healthcare. His sister Catherine had his same sharp eyes, but where hers were stern, his were gentle. "Elena, please sit." "Mr. Morrison, if this is about the ceremony, I didn't ask for—" "Sit, please." He gestured to a leather chair that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I sat on the edge, my cleaning supplies bag at my feet, ready to flee. I wanted to explain why I did what I did, why I contacted Catherine, why I funded the endowment. He leaned back, studied me. 15 years ago, my daughter Margot was in a car accident. Drunk driver, 2 a.m. She was coming home from a party. She was 17. She lived, but barely. 3 months in ICU, then rehab, then home care. I didn't understand what this had to do with me. You cleaned our home offices during that time. You met Margot. Do you remember? I did. A girl in a wheelchair, thin and angry, who threw things and screamed at her parents, who looked at me once and said, "At least someone in this house does real work." You talked to her. In Spanish, even though she didn't speak it. You told her stories about your son, about crossing into Boston, about learning to hope again after loss. My wife told me. She said you sang to Margot once, some song your mother used to sing. Margot cried for the first time in months. My throat tightened. I'd forgotten. You forget small kindnesses when your life is built from them. Margot's in medical school now. Johns Hopkins. She's going to be a trauma surgeon. She says it's because you told her that broken things can be useful, that surviving means something. His voice caught. When I heard your son on that phone call Wednesday night, telling you to stay home, I felt sick. This brilliant young man, who we've watched grow up through your stories, who you sacrificed everything for, he learned nothing about where his strength came from. Mr. Morrison, I wanted him to feel what Margot felt. Shame that transforms. The kind that breaks you down so you can rebuild better. He pushed an envelope across the table. This isn't charity. It's an employment contract. We're hiring you as our facility's dignity coordinator. 40 hours a week, benefits, salary. You'll still clean, if you want. But you'll also train new staff, ensure fair treatment, advocate for the people who keep this firm running. $60,000 a year. I stared at the envelope. $60,000. I made 23 working 3 jobs. I can't accept this. It's because of Daniel. Because of the ceremony. It's because you've been doing this job unofficially for years. The other cleaning staff come to you with problems. You negotiate with building management for better supplies. You cover shifts when people are sick. You've been a coordinator without the title or pay. Now you'll have both. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. A contract, official and legal, with my name typed in bold. Benefits. Health insurance, dental, vision, 401k matching, 2 weeks paid vacation. Things I'd heard about but never thought applied to people like me. Take the weekend to think about it. But Elena, he stood, you deserve this. Not because of your son, because of you. I took the contract home, sat at my kitchen table reading it over and over. The Virgin Mary statue watched from her shelf, my mother's voice in my memory. Dios provee, mija. God provides. But this didn't feel like providence. It felt like pity, like the world finally noticing me because I'd been publicly humiliated, because my son's shame had made me visible. Saturday afternoon, Daniel appeared at my door. I almost didn't answer, but I saw him through the peephole, standing in the hallway with a bag of groceries and flowers. Carnations, cheap ones from Stop and Shop, the kind I used to buy myself when I wanted to feel human. "I know you said you needed time." His voice was rough through the door. "But I need to say something. Please, Mama." I opened the door. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his Harvard sweatshirt wrinkled. "Good. 5 minutes," I said. He set the groceries on my counter. Milk, bread, fresh vegetables, things I usually bought once a week to make last. The flowers he held awkwardly, like he'd forgotten how to give gifts. "I've been seeing a therapist. Started Thursday." I told her everything, the phone call, the ceremony, all of it. "You need a therapist to tell you that shaming your mother was wrong? I need a therapist to tell me why I did it." He sat at my table without asking, his long legs cramped in my small kitchen. "She thinks it's about survival. Law school, that world. It's brutal. Everyone's trying to prove they belong." I saw how people treated students who seemed different, who didn't know the unspoken rules. I watched them get excluded, dismissed. I was terrified of being one of them. "So you excluded me first?" "Yes." He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. "I excluded you because I was afraid they would. I made you invisible before they could. And I told myself it was for your protection, that you wouldn't be comfortable there anyway. I built this whole story where I was doing you a favor. You were doing yourself a favor. You were erasing where you came from so you could pretend to be something else." "I know." His voice broke. "I know that now. The ceremony. Watching you stand there, everyone applauding. I saw myself through their eyes. And Mama, I was a monster. I was exactly the kind of person I used to hate. The kind who makes it and forgets everyone they climbed over to get there." I poured myself coffee. Didn't offer him any. Let him sit with his discomfort. "Sarah broke up with me, the girl I was with at graduation. She said she couldn't be with someone who treated their mother like that. Said it showed my character, who I really was." He laughed bitterly. "Everyone knows. My study group, my friends, people I've been trying to impress for 3 years. They all know I'm the guy who told his housekeeper mother to stay home from his graduation. Is that why you're here? Because you're embarrassed?" "No." "Yes, I don't know." He put his head in his hands. "I'm here because I don't know who I am anymore. For 3 years, I've been performing, being someone I thought I needed to be. And now I look at that person, and he's a stranger. Worse than a stranger. He's a coward." Something in my chest loosened slightly. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition. He was beginning to see. "The therapist wants me to understand where it started. The shame. She asked about my childhood, about growing up here, about how I felt about you working so much." He looked around my apartment, the water stains, the old furniture, the Virgin Mary statue, the portrait of Felipe I kept on the shelf. I told her I was angry, as a kid, that you were never home, that other kids had parents who went to school events and made cupcakes and showed up for things, that I was embarrassed when teachers asked about my family, and I had to explain, you work nights. My coffee went cold in my hands. She said I never processed that anger, that I buried it under gratitude because you were sacrificing for me, and being angry at you felt ungrateful. So it festered. And when I got to Harvard, around people whose mothers didn't work, whose families had money and status, all that buried anger became shame. Shame that I came from this. He gestured around the apartment. Shame that you cleaned toilets. Shame that I couldn't pretend I came from somewhere else. So you made me disappear. Yes. Tears ran down his face. And the worst part is, Mama, I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to undo 3 years of becoming someone I hate. The therapist says it's a process that I need to rebuild from the ground up. But what if I can't? What if I'm just broken? I thought about the contract in my purse, about Robert Morrison's daughter, broken and remade. About faith, not the easy kind that expects miracles, but the hard kind that plants seeds and waits for seasons to change. You're not broken. You're learning. There's a difference. I refilled my coffee, finally poured him one. He took it like a lifeline. Growing up, you felt abandoned. I understand that. I was working to give you opportunities, but I missed the life I was working to improve. That's the trap of poverty, mijo. We sacrifice the present for a future that sometimes costs too much. You gave me everything. I gave you survival. That's not the same as everything. I sat across from him. Your anger was valid, but what you did with it wasn't. You punished me for circumstances neither of us could control. You made me pay for the system that broke both of us. He nodded, crying quietly into his coffee. You want to fix this? Here's how. You stop performing. You stop trying to be someone else. You go to that big law firm job. He'd accepted a position at Ropes & Gray, starting in September. And you do good work, but you never forget where you came from. You use your education to help people like us, not to escape us. You become the lawyer I imagined when I scraped together tuition money. Someone who remembers that justice isn't just for people who can afford it. What if I fail? What if I can't be that person? Then you fail, and you try again. That's what faith means, Daniel. Not that you'll succeed, that you'll keep trying even when you fail. We sat in my kitchen for 3 hours. He helped me put away groceries. He fixed the leaky faucet I'd been meaning to address. He told me about his job, his fears, his plans. He asked about mine, and I told him about Morrison's offer, watching his face cycle through pride and guilt and something like hope. You should take it, Mama. You deserve it. I'm thinking about it. What's holding you back? Pride, maybe. Or fear that accepting makes me someone I'm not. I'm a housekeeper. That's who I've been for 23 years. This new job, Facilities Dignity Coordinator. It feels like playing dress-up. You've been coordinating for years. Mr. Morrison's right. You just weren't being paid for it. Maybe. He left at sundown, hugged me carefully like I might break. Can I come back next Saturday? Help with anything you need? We'll see. Over the next month, things shifted slowly. I accepted the job at Morrison and Associates, cut my hours at the Fairmont to part-time, quit the Beacon Hill apartments entirely. For the first time in 23 years, I slept more than 4 hours a night. My body didn't know what to do with rest. I'd wake at 2 a.m., panicked, convinced I'd overslept, that I'd lost a job. It took weeks to trust that I wasn't dreaming. Daniel came every Saturday. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just coexisted. Him fixing things in my apartment, me cooking. Both of us learning to be around each other again. He brought his therapist's homework once. A letter he was supposed to write to me, detailing everything he needed to apologize for. I read it at my table while he sat silent. I'm sorry I made you invisible. I'm sorry I valued strangers' opinions over your dignity. I'm sorry I forgot that every book I read, every class I attended, every opportunity I had came from your hands. I'm sorry I looked at those hands and saw embarrassment instead of love. It went on for 3 pages. By the end, we were both crying. Do you forgive me? He asked. I'm working on it. That's fair. The Scholarship Fund launched officially in July. The Vasquez Endowment made news again. Local this time, not national. 12 students selected for the fall semester. First-generation graduate students from across the country. I was invited to meet them at an orientation reception. Daniel offered to come. I said no. The reception was at the Harvard Law School faculty lounge, elegant and intimidating. I wore a new dress, bought new, not thrifted, with money from my first real paycheck. Still modest, still simple, but mine. Chosen because I liked it, not because it was all I could afford. The students were incredible. A young woman from West Virginia whose mother worked in coal mines. A man from South Dakota, first in his Lakota family to finish college. A woman from Mississippi who'd raised her siblings after her parents died, each with their own story of sacrifice and survival, each carrying the weight of family hopes and fears. They thanked me. God, they thanked me like I'd personally saved them. Like my humiliation at Daniel's graduation had somehow earned them this opportunity. I didn't know what to say. I'd done nothing but survive. Robert Morrison had done this. His guilt, his memory of what I'd done for his daughter, his decision to make meaning from my pain. Mrs. Vasquez? A young man approached. Carlos from Texas, his file said. Agricultural worker parents, first to speak English fluently in his family. I just wanted to say, what your son did was terrible, but what you did after was everything. You showed up anyway. You let them see you. That took more courage than anything. I just wanted to see him graduate. I know, but you also showed us that we don't have to hide, that our families, our backgrounds, the people who sacrificed for us, they're not shameful. They're our foundation. He handed me a photo. His mother and father standing in a field, smiling at the camera. My parents can't read English, but they know what this scholarship means. They know your name. In my house, you're a saint. I looked at the photo, at these tired, beautiful people who'd broken their bodies so their son could stand in a Harvard faculty lounge. Tell them I'm no saint. I'm just a mother. And tell them to be proud. Their son is going to do great things. He hugged me. Then they all did. These 12 strangers who somehow weren't strangers at all. We were linked by the invisible labor of sacrifice, by the weight of carrying family dreams, by the knowledge that education isn't just personal, it's communal, built on the backs of people who never get diplomas. Dean Catherine Morrison found me afterwards, on a balcony overlooking Harvard Yard. How are you feeling? Overwhelmed. Understandable. She stood beside me, both of us watching students walk below, privileged and oblivious. My brother told me about the job offer. I'm glad you accepted. I almost didn't. Why? Felt like charity. It's not charity. It's correction. You've been undervalued your entire career. We're simply paying you what you've always been worth. She turned to look at me. Your son called me last week. Asked if he could volunteer with the scholarship program. Help with admissions, mentoring, whatever we needed. What did you say? I said he could apply like everyone else, that his name doesn't earn him automatic redemption. She smiled slightly. He understood, said it was fair. He's trying. So are you. Forgiveness is hard work, Elena. Harder than any physical labor. Give yourself permission to take as long as you need. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over buildings built by people history forgot. Somewhere in Cambridge, my son was probably having dinner with his new colleagues, preparing for his new life. Somewhere in Dorchester, my apartment waited, small and water-stained and home. And somewhere inside me, a locked door was beginning to open, just a crack, letting in the possibility that maybe, broken things could heal. But that night, as I took the red line home, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it. Then I read it. Mrs. Vasquez, this is Sarah, Daniel's ex-girlfriend. I know this is strange, but I need to talk to you about something important. It's about Daniel and what happened at graduation. There are things you don't know, things he's hiding. Can we meet? Please, it's urgent. My stomach dropped. I looked at the text, at my reflection in the dark train window, at the city rushing past. Whatever door had been opening slammed shut again, because nothing in my life had ever been simple. Nothing had ever been just one crisis, one solution, one path to redemption. I texted back, Tuesday, 2 p.m., Dunkin' Donuts on Massachusetts Avenue. I'll be in uniform, because whatever Sarah needed to tell me, I'd face it as myself. Not as the woman in the new dress, Not as the facility's dignity coordinator. Not as the saint those students saw. As Elena Vasquez, housekeeper, mother, survivor. The woman who'd learned that the only way through pain was straight through its center. Eyes open, hands steady, faith uncertain, but enduring. The train pulled into my stop. I got off, climbed the stairs to the street, walked the familiar blocks to my building. Inside, my apartment waited, small and safe and mine. I locked the door, made coffee, sat at my table, and stared at Sarah's text until the words blurred. There are things you don't know, things he's hiding. God help me, I thought. Give me strength for whatever comes next. Outside, sirens wailed. Inside, the radiator clanged its familiar song. And somewhere between those sounds, a mother's heart prepared to break again. Tuesday came too slowly and too fast. I worked my morning shift at Morrison & Associates in my new role, training a new cleaning crew member, a young woman from Guatemala named Rosa, who reminded me of myself 20 years ago. Scared, eager, grateful for any work. I showed her the supply closets, the attorney's preferences, the unspoken rules of moving through spaces where you're meant to be invisible. "They treat you different now?" she asked in Spanish, her English still uncertain. "Some do, some don't. The work is the same, Rosa. What changes is whether people see you doing it." At 1:30 p.m., I changed into my Fairmont uniform. I'd kept the part-time morning shifts there, unable to fully let go of the identity I'd carried for 23 years. In the bathroom mirror, I looked at myself. Navy blue uniform, sensible shoes, hair pulled back. This was the Elena that Sarah needed to see. The real one. The Dunkin' Donuts on Massachusetts Avenue was crowded with summer students, tourists, people passing through Cambridge on their way to somewhere else. I bought coffee I didn't want and sat at a corner table watching the door. Sarah arrived at exactly 2 p.m. She looked different from graduation. Less polished, more tired. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a Harvard t-shirt that had seen better days. She spotted me immediately, relief crossing her face. "Mrs. Vasquez, thank you for meeting me." She sat down, clutching her own coffee like armor. "I wasn't sure you would. You said it was urgent. About Daniel." "Yes," she took a breath. "I need to tell you something he's been hiding. Something that makes the graduation situation so much worse." My stomach tightened. "Go on." "The phone call. The one where he told you not to come. It wasn't just shame or embarrassment." She pulled out her phone, scrolled through messages, turned the screen toward me. It was calculated. He'd been planning it for weeks. I looked at the text exchange. Daniel to Sarah, dated 3 weeks before graduation. "My mom's going to want to come to graduation. I need to figure out how to keep her home without making her suspicious. Any ideas?" Sarah's response: "Why would you keep your mom from your graduation?" Daniel: "She doesn't fit. The event is formal. There will be important people there. Networking, opportunities. She'll embarrass me. I need to handle this carefully." The words blurred. I read them again. "She'll embarrass me. I need to handle this carefully." "There's more." Sarah scrolled further. Daniel to a group chat with his study partners 2 weeks before graduation. "My mother's situation is handled. Told her the ceremony is family only. Limited tickets. She bought it. Crisis averted." Someone responded, "Harsh but smart. My parents are embarrassing too, but they insisted on coming. Good luck." Daniel: "Yeah, I learned early. Control the narrative or it controls you." I couldn't breathe. The coffee shop noise faded. All I could hear was my own blood pounding. "Mrs. Vasquez?" Sarah's voice seemed far away. He lied. My voice didn't sound like mine. He didn't call me the night before because of last-minute panic. He'd been planning to exclude me for weeks. He strategized it, practiced it. Yes. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know until after the ceremony. After Dean Morrison revealed everything, I went through his messages. I was so angry, I needed to understand how someone could do that to their mother. That's when I found these. Why are you showing me this? Why now? Because he's been telling a different story to everyone. To his therapist, to you, to our mutual friends. He's saying it was a moment of weakness, a panic attack, that he instantly regretted it. But Mrs. Vasquez, this was premeditated. He spent weeks figuring out how to keep you away. And the worst part, she scrolled to another message, dated the morning of graduation before the ceremony. Daniel to his roommate. Dodged a bullet. Mom's staying home. Today's going to be perfect. The coffee cup slipped from my hands. Lukewarm liquid spread across the table. Sarah grabbed napkins, mopping it up, but I couldn't move. Couldn't process. Perfect. My absence made his day perfect. I'm so sorry. Sarah was crying now. I broke up with him because of what happened at the ceremony, but now I realize even that wasn't the full truth. He's been managing his image, controlling the narrative, making himself the victim who made a mistake instead of the person who coldly calculated how to erase you. Why? The word came out broken. Why would he do this? I don't know. I've been asking myself that for weeks. The Daniel I knew, or thought I knew, wasn't this person. But maybe that's the point. Maybe we never knew him at all. Maybe he's been performing for everyone, including himself. I sat in that Dunkin' Donuts for another hour after Sarah left. She'd offered to stay, but I needed to be alone. Needed to sit with the weight of this new understanding. It wasn't just shame. It wasn't just panic. It was deliberate erasure. My son had looked at me, at the life I'd built for him, at the sacrifices I'd made, and decided I was a problem to be solved, an embarrassment to be managed. The Saturday visits, the therapy homework, the tears, were those real? Or was that just another performance, another narrative he was controlling? How much of his remorse was genuine, and how much was damage control? I took the red line home in a daze, got off at my stop, climbed my stairs, unlocked my door. Inside, my apartment felt different, smaller, the walls pressed in. Everything Daniel had fixed, the faucet, the loose cabinet door, the sticking window, suddenly felt like evidence. Like he'd been building a case for his own redemption, piece by piece, calculated and careful. My phone rang. Daniel. I stared at his name on the screen. Let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Again. On the fourth call, I answered. Mama, I've been trying to reach you. Are you okay? Where were you this afternoon? I met with Sarah. Silence. Long and terrible. Sarah. His voice changed. Careful now. Controlled. What did she want? To show me the truth. The text messages. The planning. The lies. Mama, I can explain. No. My voice was steel. Don't explain. Don't perform. Don't manage this narrative. Just tell me. Was any of it real? The therapy? The apologies? The Saturday visits? Or was that just another strategy? It's real. All of it is real. The messages Sarah showed you. Yes, I wrote them. Yes, I planned it. But Mama, that was before. Before the ceremony. Before I understood what I'd done. The person who wrote those messages isn't who I am anymore. How do I know that? How do I know this isn't just another calculation? Daniel, the remorseful son, rebuilding his mother's trust so he can feel better about himself. Because I'm telling you the truth now. Yes, I lied. Yes, I planned it. Yes, I was cold and calculated and cruel. But seeing you at that ceremony, hearing Dean Morrison read those words, it destroyed something in me. Something that needed to be destroyed. Or maybe it just forced you to change tactics. Maybe you realized being the ashamed son wasn't working, so you became the reformed son instead. That's not fair. Fair. I laughed, harsh and bitter. You want to talk about fair? You spent weeks strategizing how to exclude me. You told your friends my absence would make the day perfect. You managed me like a problem. And now you want me to believe you've changed in 6 weeks? I have changed. I'm trying. Everyone's trying, Daniel. Everyone's always trying. That doesn't make the damage disappear. That doesn't make the cruelty less cruel. What do you want from me? His voice broke. Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. I'll do anything. I want you to stop performing. Stop calculating. Stop trying to manage how I see you. I want you to sit with what you did. Really. Sit with it. Without trying to fix it or explain it away or turn it into a redemption story. I can do that. Can you? Because every Saturday, every conversation, every tear, it's all been about you. Your guilt, your healing, your transformation. What about mine? What about the weeks I spent believing your lie? What about the trust you broke? Not once in a moment of panic, but slowly, deliberately, over weeks of planning. He was crying. I could hear it through the phone, but I felt nothing. Not anger anymore. Not sadness. Just a vast, empty exhaustion. Don't come Saturday, I said. Don't call. Don't text. I need time to figure out who you are and who I am, and whether there's anything left between us worth saving. Mama! I hung up, turned off my phone, sat in my kitchen as the sun set and the apartment darkened around me. The Virgin Mary statue watched from her shelf, silent and patient. My mother used to say suffering brings you closer to God, that pain purifies. But sitting there, I didn't feel closer to anything, just alone, profoundly, completely alone. The next weeks blurred together. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I avoided people who knew. Maria at the Fairmont, the attorneys at Morrison and Associates, who'd look at me with pity. I did my job efficiently, went through motions, existed without living. Robert Morrison called me into his office 3 weeks after the meeting with Sarah. Elena, you're not yourself. Is everything all right? I'm fine. You're not fine. You're a ghost. He gestured to a chair. Sit, please. I sat. My sister told me Daniel's been trying to reach you, that you've cut off contact. That's personal. I know, but it's affecting your work. You're here, but you're not present. The other staff notice. They're worried. I'm doing my job. You're doing the minimum, which is unlike you. He leaned forward. I'm not asking as your employer. I'm asking as someone who's watched you for 15 years. Someone who's seen you carry impossible weight with grace. What happened? The dam broke. I told him everything. Sarah's texts, the planning, the calculation, the performance of remorse. Words poured out, weeks of silence breaking open. When I finished, Robert sat back. My daughter Margot went through something similar. After her accident, after rehab, she came home and played the perfect patient. Grateful, optimistic, working hard. We thought she was healing. Then we found her journal. Pages of rage and pain and thoughts of suicide. She'd been performing recovery because she thought that's what we needed. The real healing didn't start until she stopped pretending. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe Daniel's performance isn't dishonest. Maybe it's the only way he knows how to exist. Law school taught him to perform. Society taught him to perform. Maybe even you taught him to perform. The perfect, grateful son who never complains about his mother's absence, never admits anger about his poverty, never shows anything but gratitude. The words hit like a slap. I never asked him to pretend. You didn't have to. When survival depends on gratitude, when your mother is sacrificing everything, what choice does a child have except to perform the role you need? The good son, the grateful recipient, the justification for all your pain. I couldn't speak. I'm not excusing what he did. Excluding you was cruel. Planning it was worse. But Elena, maybe he's been performing his whole life, and maybe the only way he knows how to heal is to perform healing until it becomes real. How do I know when it's real? You don't. That's what faith is. Not knowing, but choosing to believe anyway. I thought about that conversation for days, turned it over in my mind like a puzzle I couldn't solve. Had I demanded performance from Daniel? Had my sacrifices created a debt he could never repay? A gratitude he could never adequately express? Had I unknowingly taught him that his authentic self, angry, ashamed, struggling, was unacceptable? Sunday evening, I turned my phone back on. 43 missed calls from Daniel, voicemails I couldn't listen to, and one text sent 3 days ago. Mama, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm just asking you to let me sit with you. No talking, no explaining, just presence. I'll be at your building every Saturday at 2 p.m. I'll wait outside for 1 hour. If you want me to leave, don't come down. If you want company, I'll be there. No agenda, no performance. Just me, trying to figure out how to be your son again. That Saturday, I watched from my window at 2 p.m. He was there, sitting on the front steps of my building, wearing jeans and an old Dorchester high t-shirt I'd bought him years ago. He looked young, vulnerable, like the boy he used to be before law school, before ambition, before shame. I almost didn't go down, almost let him sit there alone, let him feel the weight of exclusion I'd felt. But something pulled me, not forgiveness, not trust, but something smaller and more fragile. Curiosity, maybe. Or the faint hope that Robert Morrison was right, that performance could become reality if practiced long enough. I walked downstairs, opened the front door. He looked up, startled. "Can I sit?" I asked. He nodded, moved over. We sat side by side on the concrete steps, watching Dorchester move around us. Kids playing basketball in the street, Mrs. Chen shuffling to the corner store, the Johnsons' argument filtering through an open window. Life, messy and real and continuing whether we healed or not. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said quietly. "Just want you to know that." Good, because I can't give it yet. I know. We sat in silence for 30 minutes. Then I said, "Tell me about the first time you felt ashamed of me. The first time you remember." He took a breath. 3rd grade, career day. All the other kids' parents came in suits, talked about being doctors and lawyers and business owners. You came straight from work, still in your hotel uniform. You talked about hospitality, about making people feel welcome. The kids laughed, not loud. But I heard it, and I saw you see it. You kept smiling, but your hands were shaking. I remembered. God, I remembered. Going home that day and crying in the bathroom while Daniel did homework. "I wanted to protect you," he continued, "but I also wanted to disappear." Those two feelings got tangled up. Wanting to protect you from their judgment became wanting to protect myself from being associated with you. And I never untangled them. They just grew together like weeds. Why didn't you tell me? How could I? You were working 3 jobs for me. You were sacrificing everything. Telling you I was ashamed felt like the worst kind of betrayal. So I buried it. Performed gratitude. Became the perfect son who never complained, never admitted struggle, never showed you anything except success. And that performance became a prison. Yes. He looked at me. "But Mama, the planning to exclude you, that wasn't performance. That was me genuinely believing you would ruin my chances. That's who I'd become. Someone who saw you as a liability instead of a person. And now? Now I'm trying to see you. Really see you. Not as my mother, not as my sacrifice, just as Elena, a woman who's been carrying impossible weight for 23 years, who deserves rest and recognition and a life that isn't just service." We sat for another hour. Didn't solve anything. Didn't fix anything. Just existed together in the difficult space between hurt and healing. Over the next months, we continued this pattern. Saturday afternoons on the steps, sometimes talking, sometimes silent. He brought coffee. I brought nothing, still unable to fully trust his presence. We didn't discuss forgiveness, didn't force reconciliation, just practiced being together without agenda. In October, the first Vasquez Endowment Scholarship recipients came to visit me. All 12 students gathering in my small apartment, bringing food and stories and gratitude. I still didn't know how to receive. Carlos from Texas had made Dean's List. The woman from West Virginia had published an article on labor law. The Lakota student was clerking for a federal judge. Daniel wasn't there. I hadn't invited him, but they asked about him. "How's your son doing, Mrs. Vasquez?" Carlos asked carefully. Has he learned? He's trying to learn. That's all anyone can do. Would you ever let him be part of the program? Help with mentoring. I thought about it. About whether Daniel had earned redemption, whether performance had become genuine, whether faith meant giving chances without guarantee. Maybe, I said, someday, when he's ready to help without needing recognition, when service doesn't require applause. In December, I invited Daniel to Christmas dinner, just the two of us in my small apartment. I cooked his favorites, tamales, pozole, tres leches cake. He brought flowers and a gift wrapped simply. You didn't have to bring anything. I know, but I wanted to. He handed me the box. Inside, a new statue of the Virgin Mary. Wooden, hand-carved, beautiful. I found an artist in El Paso. Asked him to carve her the way you described your mother's original, the one you sold for my tuition. I held the statue carefully. It wasn't the same. Nothing could be. But it was thoughtful. It was listening. It was him trying to restore something broken. "Thank you," I said quietly. We ate dinner, talked about his job. He was working with lawyers for civil rights now, in addition to Ropes and Gray, defending immigrants facing deportation. Pro bono work, the kind I'd imagined when I'd saved every dollar for his education. "Are you happy?" I asked. "I'm purposeful. That's better than happy." He pushed food around his plate. "Mama, I know I can't undo what I did. I know those text messages, that planning. It revealed who I became. But I want you to know I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to witness who I'm becoming instead." "And who's that?" "Someone who remembers that privilege is built on invisible labor, that every success has someone's sacrifice underneath it, that my law degree exists because your hands bled. I want to be someone who honors that, not perfectly, but honestly." I looked at my son, this complicated man, this work in progress, this person who'd hurt me deeply and was genuinely trying to heal. "I can witness that," I said. "I can't promise forgiveness yet, can't promise trust, but I can watch you become someone better. That's enough. That's more than enough." Years passed. Well, not years, but it felt like years. Each Saturday, each conversation, each small act of repair adding up to something like healing. Not complete, not perfect, but real. By the following spring, Daniel was deeply involved with the Vasquez Endowment Program, mentoring students, helping with applications, using his privilege to open doors for others. Dean Morrison told me he was different than other volunteer attorneys. Quieter, more humble, actually listening instead of performing expertise. "Your son is finding his way," she said, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. "Is it enough?" I asked. "Does growth erase harm?" "No, but it redeems it, transforms it into something useful. Your suffering became a scholarship. His shame became service. That's not erasure. That's resurrection." I thought about faith, about the Catholic teaching of redemption. Not that sin disappears, but that it can be transformed, made meaningful, offered up. My mother used to say suffering is wasted if we don't let it teach us. Daniel's cruelty had taught him humility. My pain had created opportunity for others. Neither made the original hurt disappear, but both gave it purpose. One Saturday in May, exactly 1 year after graduation, Daniel and I went to the ceremony for the second cohort of Vasquez Endowment Scholars. This time, I walked in with my head high, not as the humiliated mother, but as the program's namesake. This time, Daniel stood in the back, not on stage, watching me receive applause without making it about himself. After the ceremony, we stood together in Harvard Yard. "Do you forgive me yet?" he asked quietly. I thought about it. Really thought. I'm closer. Forgiveness isn't a moment, mijo. It's a practice. Every day, I choose to see who you're becoming instead of who you were. Some days that's easy. Some days it's impossibly hard. But I'm practicing. Can I keep trying? You don't need my permission to try. You need your own commitment. Not to me. To yourself. To the person you want to be. What if I fail? What if I slip back into old patterns? Then you fail. And you try again. That's what grace means. Not that we don't fail. That failure isn't final. We walked through Cambridge together, past the law school, past the Dunkin' Donuts where Sarah had shattered my remaining illusions, past the spaces where our relationship had broken and begun rebuilding. "Thank you," Daniel said as we reached the T station. "For what? For not giving up on me, for staying, for letting me sit on those steps every Saturday, even when you had every reason to slam the door. I'm your mother. That's what we do. We stay. Even when it costs us, even when it hurts. We stay and hope our children become who they're meant to be. Did I become who I was meant to be? I don't know yet. Ask me in another decade, or 2, or 3. Becoming isn't a destination, mijo. It's a direction. Right now, you're moving towards something better. That's enough." We parted at the station. He took the red line toward his apartment in Somerville. I took it back to Dorchester, to my building, to my small apartment that was slowly filling with evidence of a new life. The new Virgin Mary statue, photos from scholarship receptions, certificates from Morrison and Associates, acknowledging my contributions. I sat at my kitchen table with coffee, looking at the graduation program from a year ago. Daniel's name in elegant serif font. No acknowledgement of me anywhere on the page. I should throw it away, I thought. Let it go. But something made me keep it. A reminder that pain can be a teacher if we let it. That humiliation can become transformation. That even the deepest breaks can heal. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Thank you for today. For every day. Te quiero, mamá." I stared at those last words. Te quiero. I love you. In Spanish. In the language of his childhood. Before shame. Before performance. Before he learned to hide. I typed back. Te quiero también, mijo. Keep becoming. Outside, Dorchester continued its rhythm. Inside, my apartment held me gently. And somewhere in the space between hurt and healing, a mother's heart opened just a little wider, making room for the complicated, painful, necessary work of forgiving her son. Not because he deserved it, not because the hurt had disappeared, but because carrying the weight of his shame along with everything else I'd carried for 23 years was simply too much. Some burdens, I realized, you have to put down, not because they're resolved, but because you need your hands free to keep living. I placed the graduation program in a drawer, not thrown away, not displayed, just held, carefully, the way you hold complicated truths that shape you without defining you. The Virgin Mary statue, the new one Daniel had carved for me, watched from the shelf. My mother's voice echoed in memory. Dios provee, mija. God provides. Not always what we want, not always what we expect, but what we need to grow, to learn, to become something more than our pain. I finished my coffee, washed the cup, prepared for bed. Tomorrow was Sunday, my day off. I'd go to Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Roxbury, light a candle, pray the prayers my mother taught me, not for answers, not for easy resolution, just for strength, for faith, for the grace to keep practicing forgiveness even when it felt impossible. Because that's what redemption is, I thought as I turned off the lights. Not a moment, not a miracle, just the slow, difficult, sacred work of becoming better than your worst moments, of letting broken things heal even when the scars remain, of choosing hope over bitterness, day after day, Saturday after Saturday, until the choosing becomes natural, until forgiveness stops being a practice and becomes, finally, who you are. You don't know how to behave at these fancy events. Stay home, said my son, one day before his graduation. That I had paid for everything. I just accepted. On graduation day, he went pale when the school principal came personally to pick me up.